Hey, Aboro Boy, this is Oluo Fakolade of Idinka Ifa Temple. I want to welcome you all. Thank you all for joining us for another installment of Makings of Men. So, those of you who know, Makings of Men is our contribution to the development of African manhood in our community, the sustaining of that process, and also the development of that process within young boys, transforming them into men. So I want to introduce a good brother of mine I've known for a while. And let me introduce him because it's going to be a really great gift to share this time with him. So this brother is Oloye Atunwase Ifatunji Awodi. This brother has been initiated to Ifa for over 14 years, walking that sacred path of Ifa development and reverence and commitment to purpose. The brother has a master's degree in ethnomusicology, and he carries a unique focus on Yoruba musicology, weaving ancestral wisdom with the academic rigor. As the executive director of the Hawk Foundation for Research and Education in African Culture, he has developed and implemented African drum and cultural curricula across Washington state, including transformative work in youth detention centers through Awodi drumming, a healing modality rooted in the Yoruba rhythms for rehabilitation and reconnection. As a chief priest, or as the chief priest of Ile Awodi Temple, or Loye Awodi, guides African Americans across the diaspora back to the spiritual wellspring of Africa, holding space for collective healing, cultural remembrance, and ancestral restoration. So I want to introduce to some and present to others our dear brother, Oloye Atunwase Ifatunji Awodi. We welcome you, Baba. Karo, Kabo. Thank you so much for tapping in.
Aboye, Aboshishe o.
Abo Shishe Agoto. Man, thank
Thank
you for
you.
joining us, bro. Thank you so much. So,
Yes.
before I've said a lot, but I want you to introduce yourself. Who are you? What is your name? Where are you from? All of that. Please give us the rundown.
Yeah. Ogoye Ifatunji. People in my temple call me Baba Tunji. The drummers. As you mentioned, I'm from the Ayan Society, so drummers call me Ayanwumi. But basically, I'm from Seattle, so I'm from the West Coast. Grew up out here. Grew up at a time when Orisha culture wasn't popular at all. You know, my family happened to be involved in it, but it wasn't really popular as it is now. I would say that because I'm from the Pacific Northwest, a lot of people look at me and they say, "Wait, there's black people out there." And yes, there is. Yeah, we got black people in the Pacific Northwest, right? And a little bit about that history is, through the migration of blacks to the West. A lot of them came from it to L.A. Oakland. We see all that rich culture that comes from Oakland and the Bay and stuff. There was those who went there, but then there was also those who tried to come up north, like closer to Seattle, right? And so first they settled in Portland. Portland was actually it was one of those towns that they banned black people settling there, and you can actually
Mhm.
lose your life. So black people, when they came up to that area, they had to actually move up. In Seattle, the central district of Seattle was actually one of the first areas that they allowed for mass black people to settle. However, what little known history is Washington State was we say founded, but some people try to like say co-founded. Either way, one of its founding fathers, besides the Native Americans because they were already here, right? But for the U.S. like colony or whatnot like that was an African American, and his name was George Bush, right? And so we all like, and his son, I know that's crazy, right? His son
Right.
actually,
That's a crazy name. The name is
a
insane.
crazy day, right? Crazy day. Black dude settled in Tumwater. The white people were like, okay, cool, he's out here. To settle this, and then his son actually founded one of our colleges, Washington State University. So Washington, in a weird way, has a pretty strong Black history that a lot of people just wouldn't really think about. A lot of musicians come from Seattle. Like, not come from Seattle, but came to Seattle to really like push their music. Like Quincy Jones, he actually he actually dedicated a whole music center to the school that I went to high school at, right? Because just to represent that, he got to start out here. Jimi Hendrix is actually from Seattle. So we got a couple of Black music legends and whatnot. Seattle used to actually be considered a jazz and a music hub. Not so much anymore on the Black side, but it was definitely a musical environment. And I remember even growing up, I played saxophone because my mom was really big on maintaining and promoting Black culture and history, and letting people know that this stuff came from us. And so I remember there was a couple, older cats who used to have horns and stuff. We'd go to their house playing saxophone, talking about African drumming and stuff. And then we'd be mixing some stuff together. But I was always, growing up in that scene, in Seattle, but also because of the lack of numbers we do have compared to a lot of other places, you also definitely see a lot of those inequities a lot too, right? So growing up, it was interesting because, you would expect that Seattle wouldn't have some of the things that it has, right? Some of the negative cultural elements that it has, but for because there, we had a strong history of redlining. I mentioned Oregon. Even within Seattle, there was huge redlining. What you had is you see those inequities really strong. And another interesting fact is outside of California, Seattle had the second Black Panther branch. So started Oakland, then y'all had yours in LA and all that. But then actually the other but as far as out of state people to adopt the Black Panther mission and whatnot like that, it was actually Seattle. We were the first one outside of Cali, the first branch in the central district. And actually I went to a middle school called the Madrona Panthers, and that's actually in remembrance of the Black Panthers.
Wow. So, man, I thank you for sharing that history. Because for me, I teach at the university, and right now I'm talking about the Great Migration. And this Great Migration that comes in it comes at least in two different waves. Black folks moving from the South, like Georgia, Texas, the Carolinas, and that first wave they're moving to Midwest, East Coast, like New York, Ohio, St. Louis, and Chicago, all of those places. And that's perhaps, from the 20s to like maybe about the 40s or 50s. And then this second wave happens, and that second wave happens and it brings Black folks from the South, those same areas, to like Arizona, to San Diego, California, Los Angeles, Oakland, Seattle, all those areas. And I myself am a product of that. That migration goes from roughly the 40s to the 70s. And so many of us have that history. And then the thing of it is folks don't really, as you mentioned in terms of Seattle, they don't really even talk about that. One of my favorite rappers at a particular point in time, other than Sir Mix-a-Lot, but one of my other favorite MCs, Ish, from Digable, is out there in Seattle. I believe he's in Seattle.
Wow. Yep.
Yeah. So there's also a significant hip hop history out there as well. Ish from Digable.
Yeah.
Shout out Butterfly.
I went to school with Ishmael's son from Digable Planets. Not son, daughter.
Word.
I randomly found out that I was like, it's look at it. She was like, and my mom was like, that's like Israel's daughter, right? I was like, wait, are you? And she was like, don't be telling everybody in the school. I was like, ah! And so it's like even playing Bata in Seattle growing up, he came to a few of the shows that I was at. I was like, this is there because he's a local legend. Yeah.
Like literally, like that was Digable Planets got. I'm trying to remember if they got the one of the first hip hop Grammy Award winning acts.
Yeah.
That was like for Rebirth of Slick, I believe. They came out with that and they got a Grammy for that joint. And then when he got on stage, what he said was dope. He was, he kind of took a very I don't say Afrocentric, not limited to Afrocentric, but also a very powerful political stance.
Yes.
When he spoke. So you're right. Your area, your section has a ton of history. And when you mentioned that, the other thing I wanted to inquire about is, so you mentioned African spirituality, and I want to find out, were you born into Ifa or an African spiritual system? And if not, like, how did you become interested in this?
Well, thank you. So that actually comes from my mom, because her mom's side of the family, they're actually from New York, right? And when we were growing up in Seattle, she wasn't into no Orisha at all, but she was always very open, right? And so we get to like 10, 11, and this is interesting because my mom and dad separated at a younger age, right? And so I'm going to tell you the path my dad went to, which is very fascinating. But my mom ended up going to, taking an Afro-Caribbean like 10. And then she didn't really know that the Orishas were black, though, because the people who were in the dance class weren't necessarily black, but she was just like, oh, I like this dancing. This is fun, right? So she didn't know anything about the Orisha or nothing, right? And, but I was getting on her last nerves. I was like, man, I'm not trying to be here. I don't want to do this. It's like, I'm trying to do all this stuff. I want to see all this drumming and all this stuff like that. And I see these people speaking in Spanish. I don't speak no Spanish. I was just a 10-year-old, just like, I don't want to be here, right? Then my mom stuff finally looked at me, look, you're either going to drum or you're going to dance. But it's going to be one or the other. And so I looked at her and I was like, okay, I'm taking up drumming. I ain't dancing, right? And so I just started doing it. And I started learning, and then eventually, like my mom found out, like, oh, these are actually African gods, and they brought like some Afro-Cubans from Cuba and from around the United States to come. And I'm looking at them, I'm like, these guys speak Spanish, but they black as me. And no, they were blacker than me. So I'm like, looking at them, I'm like, wait, hold up. I mean, I remember whatever. Then they started bringing some Puerto Rican dudes, and they was brothers too. And I'm looking like, oh, what? They got us over there. You know what I mean? So I started getting more interested and start seeing myself through the drum. And as a kid, even my first drum teacher, he was amazing. Like, I still was I ain't trying to do all this, right? But when I started seeing those guys coming and seeing drumming named Adamas and all these guys, I'm seeing these guys like looking chocolate and like with these big strong hands, and I'm like, man, I want to be like that, right? So it's like drumming to me was a form of positive masculinity that I was able to see. I'm able to see men being able to release their strength, have grace with how they hit the drum. It was such a beautiful art form filled with so much power. And I'm seeing like, black men even speaking Spanish doing this. I'm like, oh, I want to do this. So then eventually, little by little, seeing those guys and recognizing like that positive form of masculinity really inspired me. And it got to a point where by the time I was 12, 13, all I, whenever I was stressed out about things or just in general, I would just take the drums and drum them. It got to a point where I started taking the drums to the basketball court and just drumming. And dudes would be looking at me like playing basketball and be like, what's he doing? Right? But then I had some of the younger like siblings like come and say, oh, we want to drum. So they'd be like, okay, that's cool. He teaching them how to drum, right? So I was teaching kids, just teaching them drumming and stuff like that, and just trying to drum with everybody, right? Um, Later on, and so that it came back versus drumming when I was about 15, 16. An African American Bible came was started coming to Seattle, and my mom was like, okay, cool, yeah, I want to get you and all your siblings, their hand of Ifa. So we went ahead and we did that, and then so we went and I received my hand of Ifa. I would say that like non-officially I was in, we're in the religion since I was 11, 12, but like, officially, like when I received that hand of Ifa, it was just like, yep, this is what it's going to be. Right. Mm. And so, I did that. And then I was just like, I definitely knew that this was a path that I wanted to go. It was telling me a lot of things about, just even the hand of Ifa reading was very, very, it's interesting. I go back to that reading or to that Odu. And a lot of people talk about, oh, you only need Tefa in order to know your destiny. And the hand of Ifa, that Odu isn't that important. But honestly, I think, and maybe if you have your Esentaye, maybe the hand of Ifa does serve as just like not as strong of importance, right? Mm-hmm. But because I think a lot of us use Ishefa as, kind of our Esentaye divination because we didn't have that growing up, right? And so I got, mine was Ogunda Meji, right? I remember that would do very clearly. And I was like, man, I'm a Ogun worshiper. This is this. It was funny though, because the Bible who did it looked at it and said, when he was casting, he was like, no, I think you're actually supposed to go initiate Tobatala. And we were like, huh? But it was still very good information. We learned a lot. Like, I was just thinking about like even like the emphasis on a lot of things that I do because Ogunda Meji speaks. When we think about the energy of Ogun in general, we do speak about the a lot of creativity, right? And a lot of like doing like work and building things and whatnot like that. And he even told me at an early age, he said, yeah, you're gonna be running your own stuff. Like you're not really like you like entrepreneurship, but you also like just building things, right? And it was interesting. A couple years later, at 19, I got into, I was going to school and I actually got a scholarship to travel abroad. But when I did that, I actually, in Nigeria, but what I did was I used some of that money too also to go ahead and get initiated and do my TEFI. Right. So the TEFI, it was funny because it was like, oh yeah, you need to initiate to Obatala. I was like, oh, look at him. He was right. But it also spoke a lot about, some very interesting things too. And I would say that you personally, one of the benefits of getting initiated so young is that you have room to hit your head. I mean, you got room to like be like, okay, this ain't gonna work, or this works, or this is gonna be it, or this isn't, right? I think in our generation, sometimes because a lot of times people might not get initiated to like way older in life, right? So some of them who might be like, hey, if I said I'm supposed to be a Babalawo, they're like, well, I just got initiated. Let me go ahead and start practicing. I might not know X, Y, and Z, but I'm just gonna go ahead and get to it, right? I want to accomplish my destiny. I think since I was initiated young, I tried to come back to Seattle and try to do some things, and I'm like, you know what? I need to study. Hold up. I'm not doing all this. I'm not being responsible for nobody's life and not have a certain foundation or whatnot like that. So that's when I also I think, that was a benefit for me to just, put in the work.
Mm-hmm. I got you. That's so interesting. You mentioned so many very interesting aspects of Ifa with receiving your hand of Ifa and how, to be real with you, in the diaspora, in a lot of ways, that functions as almost like our Esentaye kind of Odu. And I don't know, you mentioned so much because this is kind of the person, this is from conversations I remember having with you. I think I'm trying to remember the first time I met you. It had to be over 15, 16 maybe years ago, and I think it was Houston. I think
it was right. It was right after I was initiated, so I was like, yeah, it was about. Let's see. Oh my gosh, I'm getting over again. It was 15 years ago.
Yeah, because I remember
No, it was before I got initiated. Yep.
I remember because the thing of it is, I remember you mentioning back then that you wanted to go study drumming, or you know, like that's the thing that I remember quite clearly about you, is that you mentioned. I remember, I never forget you in that regard, because you were like, yeah, I'm gonna go, like, because you were very gung ho about it, and like most people at your age, I'm just saying, most people at that age, they're gonna say whatever, but when you said, you know, I'm going to go to Nigeria and I'm going to study the drum. I'm going to do this and I'm going to get my scholarship. I'm going to Nigeria. And I remember you saying that. And I was like, dang, that's dope. Yep. You know what I'm saying? In my mind, I'm like, that's dope. That's dope. That'd be dope. You know, but then to some people, they'll be like, yeah, that's dope if you can pull it off, you know?
Yeah.
And the reality of it was, the next time I saw you was years later. I was like, yo, son he's in Nigeria. Like, he's real in Nigeria. He's in UK, like, right now. And so when I say that is, it's so incredible to see that manifestation, to kind of known you, like, before going and spending long periods of time in the motherland. And so I wanted to ask, like, what is the longest time you spent, and what are some of your favorite places in Yoruba land, for example?
I think the longest in one stint was like 9 months, but then the weird thing about it is, the time I did that, I actually came back for a month and went back for like 2 more months in that same time, right? So I was, you know, when I was younger, you know, that's the one thing about having our youth into this practice. Like, even when me and my sons, I'm trying to push them, like, not trying, they already be singing Orisha songs, and they're like 1 and 2, right? But I'm pushing them into it because they have time where eventually sometimes we don't have the same amount of time. I can't just go off or whatever like that, or I can, but I got to worry about the kids and I got to do this. So it's like, there's a way you have to do it when you're older, versus when I was younger, I was like, okay, you know, let me just get out here. You know what I mean? And so I think, that was, so I would say, it was around that. And then, you know, of course, going back and forth. I think a lot of people, it's interesting because I love talking, you know, when we were talking, a lot of people I talked to who knew me when I was younger were like, you really are out here doing everything that you said you was going to do. Yeah. And I be looking back sometimes, I'm like, I'm really out here doing it. Like, you know, I actually do what I wanted to do.
Okay. Like, for real, like, the thing I think about is like, yo, bro, he said he was going to do this. Like, he really, I remember that distinctly years ago. Like I said, years and years. I was like, he said he was going to do everything you were doing. You said that. Like, I remember talking to you years ago and you said all those things. And I was like, dang, that's, you know, that's dope. That'd be dope to pull that off, you know, in your mind. But that's a beautiful thing to have, really, purpose. And be in tune and in contact with your purpose at such, you know, they say a young age, but, you know, but yes, at a young age, but also to know like, literally to know your purpose. One thing that's so beautiful about both of our children is that they will grow up. Like, I always tell my wife that when they grow up, because all I have is sons. I got like 3 sons. So, and like, when they grow up, if they rebel, they're going to rebel against truth. So they'll always come back to it.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we teach them the truth. We do the best that we can to do what's right. And they have the time to, as you said, bump their heads, and they're gonna, okay, I don't know. And then, wait, this makes so much sense. I'm back in it.
Yep.
That's such a powerful thing.
We literally got, no, but I love that you said this, because I knew guys, even in the Afro-Cuban drummers, like Arena, right, who was like, yeah, our kids went off and did all this stuff, and then they came back 3 years later or 4 years later and realized, nah, he passed away. Even in Africa, I've seen Babalaos who were great Babalaos say, nah, look, when I was old enough, I left the house. I was in Lagos. I was turning up. I was trying to make money. I was doing all this. Then like 5 years later, they come back and say, "Okay, you fine." So raising your kids the truth. You're right. It gives them that foundation. So no matter where they go, they always gonna come back.
Yes. Yeah. You give them the right stuff, the right information. It's like, it's gonna bring them. It's gonna bring them right back.
Yep.
So when you were in Nigeria, I'll say this: like, where is the place where you have learned the most Ifa versus music, culture, what have you? Where are the places that you have learned like the most?
So yes, and I'll go into. I would say, hands down, I had more years in Ilobu. However, it's interesting because I've been like really like my Bata lineage is in Issei no Yo. And one of the things that I wanted to get from them that eventually like they've actually let me like they've kind of to an extent I can't even say like to an extent like have adopted me in like the whole family structure of that village in Issei no Yo, right? And so because of that, like I've always wanted to learn, I was learning a lot of Ifa, like straight Ifa in Yoruba. But in Issei, I wanted to learn more about the Olarisha tradition. I wanted to know about Aaron Dilogun, how to cast it, what the Orisha, Babalawo, yes, we appease Orisha, right? But when you go to these various Orisha lineages, they do some different things or some intricate things more because that's their juice, right? And so in order to really get some of that information, you gotta like really connect with women and a lot of the women in these areas and whatnot like that, and the Olarisha and all that stuff like that. So Issei allowed for me because I got in through drumming and then they liked me and then they're like, oh, okay, you really, because what they recognized about me was this. And this kind of goes back to your conversation about rigor.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah. So in the Afro-Cuban or in the like Latino community, right? When we talk about Orisha practice, there's institutions that were already built in Cuba for such a long time that when it spread to different like cultures, like whether it be Puerto Rico or different Spanish-speaking cultures, right? They brought with them the reverence for those institutions. And what I mean by that is this, right? I remember we used to, one of the reasons why I used to look up to being a Bata drummer is I'd be like, oh man, people would fly you out to different states or whatnot like that, pay you, some good money. I've seen them pay them a couple of G's just to drum and stuff, right? And not just the drum, but for their stuff. And really like, and to pay the artists who they knew all the rhythms for Garisha. Right. And so that institutional, and you would see people who'd be like, okay, we're going to all work together as a family or a community, save our money up for the whole year just so we can bring these guys and really worship in this way. Right. So there was that discipline and that institutional like discipline, respect, right? Even in Nigeria, to a large extent, like Nigeria, the root of it, right? And so I won't say even, I'll say now take that to Nigeria, the root, right? Drummers have a discipline for understanding that, for each Orisha, I need to learn how to speak its name on the drum. I need to know how to speak in Owe. I need to know how to speak this and that, right? And so when they go outings, they would even, amongst Ion, we have like, okay, this is my section. And the only drummers who can drum for these people are the ones from this area. And this is our section. Sometimes we'll call other ones from other places. We'll show respect, but then they'll pay or whatnot like that. Or, my Issei lineage, because Abiyakuta has mostly Bembe drummers, but sometimes for Yumoja and Shango, they really want Bata, right? So they'll call them down, right? And they're connected with the Ion drummers there, and they're like, cool. But, there's a relationship of understanding, like, the thousands of years old like structure for the drums and the like respect and the tradition, right? In the US, because I'll get to we're still building up to that point. A lot of people like when they think about drums, right? You might see djembes, you might see like different other kinds of drums that aren't necessarily traditionally related to Yoruba or whatnot like that. And we had to do that because we had to do it, right? But now, like, it's also, I think now so many of us are used to a certain way of how it looked And so now when they're saying, oh wait, Tunji and them playing Bata over there. Hold up, they're doing the Bata too. Oh, hold on, right? It's getting now it's gonna be interesting to see how that shifts in the community about the understanding of like, okay, now we have this structure. Oh wait, but in order to have them come for our festival, oh, we're gonna have to pay for people's plane tickets. We're gonna have to do this. How are we gonna do this? Okay, maybe this is gonna take community coming together and say, hey, we're all in the temple. Let's all, do this for the year. Put aside the extra, I don't know how much a month to be able to have this and set the ceremony up in that level, right? And so now taking it back to my point, they saw me and they saw that I was like willing to really prostrate for the drum and really say, okay, what is it that I need to learn? And at first, they weren't trying to, like, you can tell a lot of the Bata drummers, they're like, they'll pretend to teach you, but they ain't really trying to teach you like that. They're not going to teach you the deep secrets. They'll give you, like, some stuff or whatever. Because I've ran into that in different regions where it's like, oh, y'all don't really want to teach me, right? But after a while, like, they actually, I don't know, they must have saw something in my spirit or whatnot like that, and they recognized that, oh, he really is into this. Right. And so they eventually started opening up. Now, keep in mind this, I went to Nigeria at 19. I wasn't able to find a consistent teacher to teach me what I wanted until I got to like 26. Even then, by then, because I was older or whatnot like that, I wasn't able to, in undergrad or whatnot, I wasn't able to really get, really study as much until really I got to about 30. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, really. So now, like, I'm playing, it's not even catch up though, because I'm almost got Iwu Shishe, which is our basically like complete, like kind of playing for all the Orisha in the beginning of the ceremony. I almost got that all down. I already know how to play for different Orisha and the call for trance and all that stuff like that. So it's like it, but what it is a testimony to is the desire, the love, the saying that I don't care how long it's going to take me to find the way I want to learn it. I'm going to learn it this way, right? Like Isain lineage is one of the only lineages in Nigeria. They all have a ceremony to associate you with Ayam, but they're the only one of the only ones that does the full Idoshu, which is an initiation where they shave your head and then you become like, it's basically you become one with the drum. I went through that Idoshu ceremony. They're one of the deep lineages. And I've been to other places, and it's funny to see people now, like when I was posting, Nigeria's funny, right? When I was posting, I think other people start seeing stuff and saying, oh, well, we have that too, right? And I'll be like, okay, then why don't y'all do it? And then some people was like, okay, well, then, they get kind of, not arrogant, but kind of like, oh, man. But yeah, he's saying, from even the research that I did, like, I'm doing a whole documentary on Bata, I got drummers in different regions who admit it. Yeah, we don't initiate people to our Bata. That's not how we do this, right? And I'm talking about elders, whether it be Ogun State, different areas, right? But Oyo is saying, in a few other places throughout, like Oyo or whatnot, because Bata comes from Oyo, so it makes sense. They have, certain ceremonies that they're like, no, this is gonna go a little bit deeper than just, you getting basically Ayan Shishe or you connecting to the drum. We're gonna take it deeper, and now you're going to bind to the drum. And that's what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for, I wasn't in the beginning, I wasn't looking for just like, okay, cool, I'm a good drummer, whatever like that. Like I don't know what it was, but when I was 13 and I saw this one Bata drummer, he was from New York, he was Afro-Cuban dude, he was drumming Bata. I saw fire in his eyes, like flames, real flames. I said, and I looked at him and said, I saw fire in your eyes. He said, people told me that all the time. I was like, huh? And at that point, I was like, I don't know what, the drum just called me in a way where it was like, this is what I'm gonna do in life. So I was like, I'm looking around, I didn't care. I was like, nope, I don't want to learn talking drum. I don't want to learn this. I want Bata. I want Ayan Gagu. And finally, when I found the lineage, and it was all crazy because even they tried to, like, one of my in El De Remo, because I was there first, right? El De Remo, they tried to because there was some politics, they tried to connect me with the talking drummer, even though I didn't want to, but the Bata drummer happened to be a Babalawo too, so they didn't want him to take no client or whatever. So we did the Ayan ceremony, right? They have. Tell me why the OB wasn't accepting the whole time until finally he just got mad at the day was it, and then they accepted finally, because remember each drum has its own kind of spirit. So even though drummers, when you're an Ayam, you can drum all the drums. There's a drum that you belong to. It's like, how people say, oh, Oshun and Wajah, this is this, right? When you think about me with Ayam, you could be like, oh, Bata. That's his guardian spiritual drum.
Mm.
That's where the root of a lot of my drum power comes from, right? And so they were trying to initiate me, and it was like, nah. Years later, I go to Hussein. The woman is chanting, doing a Riki, throwing water on my feet. They're throwing the Obi nothing but Alafia. Ejife, Alafia, Ejife, Alafia, Alafia, right? And everybody's looking like, oh, okay. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, wow, okay, so this drum really did choose me, you know? And so, you know, I would say that knowledge base, Hussein Oyo is definitely where now I've been spending a whole lot more time because my drum knowledge, I'm just like almost getting to a point. I want to basically, you know, within a year, I see myself actually now being able to proudly say I could play for not almost all of Orisha. And, you know, and know their rhythms and teach and do all this and what I could play for a large majority now, but within a year, I'm going to be, I've been just going there so much and learning and training and stuff like that, and eventually wanting to create my own Ion lineage out here where we can do initiations and people know that we trace our lineage through this branch and this branch for Ion, right? And so, you know, that's, but so I would say my favorite place, okay, even though I love, like, you know, the other places I mentioned, right?
Mm-hmm.
It blends it because now since I'm a Bata drummer, I'm with the Olarisha. They've been teaching me Aaron Digogun. Now I can chant for Aaron Digogun, you know? And so, like, within, like, you know, very soon I'll be able to know all the chant all 12 of them because I'm almost all the way done with it. You know, Ebo Ryu for Aaron Digogun because I've been teaching my wife how to do that. So that, you know, when we talk about woman empowerment and how that looks like in the tradition or whatnot like that, and the woman's secrets or whatever like that, now, you know, they taught me Aaron Digogun, but there's some deeper stuff that they're like, okay, when your wife comes, we'll show her how to do that. We'll take her over there. You know what I mean? So
Wow.
understanding like how this works or whatever like that. And I would say, and then, you know, I'm also connected to some of the Abu Babalaos out there too. So I've been learning even Hussein style of ways of doing things. I'm like, oh, okay, you know, and I've been adding that into my E5, my chanting and stuff. So I would say, you know, not to get trouble, but I'd say Hussein Oyo is like is probably my favorite. And I've been traveling around Africa for years. Yeah.
Man, you said so much. You said so much. Like this, yeah. We gotta do something more. We gotta talk again because, like, it's so much you're saying. Like, my trip to Ikiti, which is near Hussein, and seeing that was mind blowing. There, just the style on that side. That's near, you know, near Hussein and Ikiti area, mind blowing. But then the fact that you mentioned that there is Odosu for Anya.
Yep.
And I came up Afro-Cuban style. I actually had my hands washed for Anya. And it was a very interesting process as well. And so I don't know, it's just thinking about that, and then when you mentioned that you were basically initiated into the drum this way, this is something that doesn't make it over, you know, the Atlantic. Don't make it over to this side. You know what I'm saying? That even the conversation of that doesn't make it here. So to experience that, to go through that process, it truly, truly, truly sets you apart, in my opinion. You know,
I know people get mad when I do it. I can tell because some of the drummers. So there's drummers who be loving my comment and be like posting like, man, come on, we can't wait for you to come out there, right? But some drummers be overlooking it when I be like, and I be claiming it. I say I'm the first African American in 400 years to be initiated Idoshu to Ion. You know, and it's like and you know. The reality of it is the lineages that do initiate full Idoshu all know each other, and we know who was initiated and who wasn't. And so it was like when I did this, they're like, nah, like, and then I searched around, and people have been able to, you know, they'll say, or someone will be like, I did my Ion in Africa, but they realize that they did. When I call it Ion Shishe, that is our version of basically, washing your hands. They realize that they did that, but when they talk about the Idoshu, they're like, no, we didn't do all that. You know what I'm trying to say? And so it's like kind of like a thing where I do, you know, claim it. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'm the first one who did this for Idoshu. And then, you know, I got a lot of like, you know, Afro-Cuban tradition friends who are like, man, that's beautiful, right? Some of them though, I remember once I posted, because it wasn't a post of like any like challenging or whatnot.
Anyway,
Yeah.
continue, Barbara. You bringing
Yeah.
stuff
So,
back.
and I tell people, you know, and I just love the fact that currently right now, you know, one of the things that we're doing is we're building a drum center. Because and I know we got into some of the work that I do. You know, here I run a whole organization, nonprofit, where we do cultural preservation, work with young black men in the juvenile detention centers using drum as therapy. But one of the other projects that we're doing is now we're doing a global initiative to preserve traditional healing African drums, and that starts with Bata. So we're currently right now in the process of building, you know, a really world class style Bata center for the preservation of it, and then eventually I want to bring some black boys over there to go ahead and do drum camps.
I want to be down. How could I be down?
Man, we gonna be down.
Man, that is dope. Yeah.
Be down.
Man, I'm just letting it be known. You know, I want to be down. Please.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
Please, I just want to learn.
Yeah.
So I also wanted to mention, I noticed that you have purchased land in Nigeria, yes, as well as you've been installed as a chief in your community. How has this process transformed your life? And what are some of your responsibilities as a chief, as an elder within that community?
Man, it's really interesting. You bring this up. So, being a chief speaks about how you carry yourself, right? Interestingly enough, my journey's been a very, very interesting though. It's not been. I don't think it's been the same. People, I've actually immediately after my chieftaincy, right? I had some people who was hating off of me, or not like that. Try to, you know, not hate. I don't want to say hate off, but I had some confrontations where I had to really delve deep into what it means to be a chief and what it means to how do you handle problems that the you who might have been 14 years ago would have handled differently. You know, and I think like my chieftaincy title actually is, you know, one who corrects character. The Atuase, you know, it's a name, you know, from Olodumare that just, one who changes and corrects character in the community, right? And so you ask yourself, like, man, you know, I think I've always had a personality that would question leadership, but not question leadership in a bad way, because I actually respect it. I love, like, you know, seeing that's why I'm in the tradition. You know, prostrating, you know, with the Oni. Y'all saw I was prostrating, all that stuff like that, right? I'm just like, yes. But like looking at structures and asking how can they better serve our people? You know, I think one of the things about me is I've seen and I'm still debating this, battling this, even understanding this within myself, but I'm learning how to do it in a different way. Because, you know, before I used to, when, you know, you're in your youth, you just be like, hey, rebel, right? Now you're like, okay, how do you do this? And one of the things is I see, you know, a lot of times people will be like, hey, this, you know, this Baba has this, or this Baba has this from this area, even whether it be in Nigeria or in the States, right? But, you know, respect, I think sometimes, how do you not become power hungry with respect, or even arrogant with it? Because, you know, I've seen people, you know, claim, so, you know, one thing about it is if you're a leader, then that means you have to take responsibility for the state of your community.
Woo!
You know, I told you, I got, you know, me and you both are, look, we're both husbands. We both got wives. We both got children. If our family's in chaos, within the African framework and the mindset of what it is to be an African man, guess what? They're going to look at you and be like, hey, why your kid out here cutting up? You going to look at me like, how your son out here cutting up? What you doing? You ain't got the structure right. What's going on? You need some sort of help, maybe, or like what's going on with, like, hey, So I know you out here being the chief and you got the eyebrow and all that stuff like that, but wait, I saw Ifa Wui out there hanging out with such and such. You know what I mean? And understanding, and I think because you're right, because of the kind of chieftaincy I have and the Ashe that was released in that, I've always been that kind of person. It was interesting when they chose that chieftaincy for me because I was like, y'all know you guys get mad when I even call out things in our village. So why are you gonna give me this chieftaincy that gives me the right to do it? And I don't know, but they did it. And whatever, there's Ashe and all that stuff like that. But what it did was it helped me to look even within my own community and say, oh man, how do I make these character changes in my own community? How do I make these character changes outside, in the outside world or whatever like that? So, in my own community here, how do I make those changes even in Africa? Because, as we said, as we talk about, being a great leader means that your community is also thriving in a certain way. And so it's like there's, even like with a lot of these projects that I'm doing cross culturally, my Ion teacher, right? Because we're doing the drum center right now. He always tells me this. He says this, look, we don't think like y'all. I said, what do you mean y'all think like us? He said, no, it's a good thing because you're coming here to learn the Yoruba mindset and way of applying that to your life. But we're also learning from you. And I realized that maybe one of the ways, I said one of the things that I could do when I look at some corruption both here and in Africa, right, is to be like, okay, cool. My one of the names given to me is Awudi, which is the eagle, right, the African eagle, and it flies higher than any of the other birds, right? So maybe creating structures that help our people to fly. And show people hey, we can be on this low level doing this low stuff, or we can be up there, and maybe giving people choices. I think that's how my chief. Those are some of the thoughts that have kind of really manifested within my chieftaincy.
Man, that's powerful. You don't hear very many chiefs talking about that. You know what I'm saying in terms of being here in the United States. I think your chieftaincy title, it means a lot. And here in the West, a lot of times, like a lot of people who receive it, it's merely a title, as opposed to a duty, an obligation, and someone also, the community crowning that. And in a real way, the community makes you a chief. Your work within the community is the thing that makes you that,
Thank you.
So that's a powerful position to be in. We talk so much. I really want to talk now about fatherhood and manhood, because we've alluded to a lot of these things, but what I want to figure out is how is teaching your family Yoruba drumming culture, how is that essential to your goals as a father?
Thank you. So when let's just switch it around. When your sons are about 10 and they're able to say, do the prayers, do the chants, and you be like, hey, go ahead and do that. Go ahead and do that. Go do that, right? One, it lightens your load, so you can go ahead and even do more and be more efficient in what you're doing in building, the Ifa Kolade, name and the lineage and all, the Idinka temple, right? When now you got your sons, and if maybe you get a daughter, right? They're all, your children are your number one fuel source for lifting it to a whole nother level. And what are we doing it for if not for them? And so with me, this Ion, and even the Ifa that I learned and the Arundel Ogun and all that, right? All this stuff, what am I supposed to have it for? Just so I can say I have it? If I'm not able to show my wife Arundel Ogun and have her now, every time we go to Egbe, she's able to do the Oriki, the long Oriki too, and sing while I drum. Now it's fun. Imagine if I'm by myself and I'm just doing the Riki, doing this, drumming. It ain't fun. But now I'm able to do this. My youngest one, he just loves to be on my lap when I'm drumming and tries to hit the drum. Now, that kind of is annoying because I'm like, boy, I'm trying to hit this drum now. You give it the beat, right? But it's, he's doing his thing. The other youngest one the other day got a stick and started hitting a conga, trying to hit it on beat with what I was hitting with the bata. What I'm saying is, these secrets, this hard work that we're doing is for our children.
Facts.
Now my son doesn't have to go ahead and go on a whole journey and wait till he's 26 to finally get everything online for him to do what he needs to do. He has everything. He has generational wealth through his culture, and so everything my wife, if one of my as a babalawo, I'm gonna say this as I was. If we, especially now, it's one thing she's just straight says, "Hey, I just want to be a pet to be cooked, clean, this and this, right?" But if we got our wives and Oshun and doing maybe egg bear, doing stuff like that, right? And she can't do the prayers, then it don't make us look that good,
right?
It don't make us look as good, and so that's why I said like all that we're doing, like okay, cool. If I have a daughter one day, how am I not? I need her to be, handle this because here's the thing. Every time I do Ifa, Adafa, and a lot of times Ifa would be like, do something nice for your wife. I'll do something for this. Because her egg babe, because she's an egg babe priestess. They said her egg babe is supporting you to be successful. So as an awo, me training her and me having her know this stuff and get good at this stuff, whatever like that, is actually the thing that's going to help me to be successful in the things I need to do as well. And so that's why I say with what she's with this tradition in general, all of this tradition really, the Batal secrets have been around for thousands of years. If I don't pass it down to my sons, then how are my people in America going to be able to get it the way it needs to be done? Get it done. Right. They could probably, now that they have it at a young age, when they go to college, they might meet some dudes on the drum line who's like, hey, what's that you drumming? Show them the drum. Now their families are able to pass down bata to their children. Now we're ensuring and doing our part that the drum's going to even last even longer for a couple more thousand years. Children, fatherhood, being a man who, and let me say this too. Your children, there's no guarantee your children will ever do what you tell them to do.
Right.
But there's 100% guarantee that your children will be who you show them to be.
Yes.
That's it. So that's the foundation of this practice.
Man, you said so much. One, and this needs to be our hashtag.
Yeah.
Our culture is our generational wealth. Like this information these are some of the things I've even mentioned, but it's like the information, the knowledge, passing this knowledge on is the generational wealth. Like with the Ifa knowledge, I've been able to support and heal family members with degenerative diseases. This knowledge, this culture is our generational wealth. You know how many people die without the information, not even knowing that they needed it. And we have that right here. We have that here. The other thing that was so powerful that you mentioned is, I think within Ifa culture, society, whatever, a lot of times the presentation is as if a Pwetebi is a duty, or a Pwetebi is, I don't know, like someone who is like a burden. And one thing that I've noticed that Baba, you mentioned, is that one thing that I noticed that you mentioned is about a Pwetebi, your wife. And I think here in the diaspora, it kind of gets twisted that she represents you.
Yep. Yep.
Like if she's not looking good in a spiritual sense and all of these things, it's a reflection on, are you doing what you're supposed to do?
Yes.
Not only that, but a Petabi is a blessing to our world.
Thank
And
you.
how do you treat it? How do you treat the Petabi as such and nurture that? I'm so thankful that you mentioned that here. Now so very important. We got so many other things to talk about, man. I want to ask.
I saw the other day, right?
Huh?
I got
Say that again?
like a month ago. And I'm so angry because I was just like had it on my mind the exact I think it was Erosan Obara or it was Obara Rosen. It was they casted it from in Nigeria, right? But one of the stories, the essay file that came from it, and I'm actually currently learning that one because it was a fire one, so I got to actually hit them up and get them, send that one, right? But it spoke about Orumila and he had 3 Omawo and his wife. Orumila was off going and traveling and doing his work or whatnot, right? I'll send this to you after the exact Odu because I'm bad that I had a brain fart right now, right? But I gotta tell you how they explain it, right? Orumila went off and traveled. His Apetibi was there, and his 3 Omawo were there. One of his Omawo made sure to care for the Apetibi, made sure to do all her needs. Like, you need the water, you need this, yes, yeah. You had prostrate, right? The other 2, they just would go off and they would, do Ifa, take some of Orumila's clients or whatnot like that, but keep the money for themselves, even though he's teaching them. And then one day it came that one of the ones would say, hey, you know what? I'm going to take Orumila's wife for myself. Right? And not by accident, but by force, right? So let me tell you what happened. The Petabi, because she was sensing something was off, she used Aaron Diogun and cast it. And Oshun warned her, to leave, pack your belongings and go, because it's not safe for you here anymore. Orumila's one faithful Omawo said, Mama, yeah, I'm coming with you. And she said, okay, of course, because he was a good servant and everything, right? While the other 2 just did whatever they wanted to do. Orumila finally, Cassie finally told him to come back. He came back, he said, where's my wife? And they looked and they were like, I don't know, she just left. But Orumila, he was able to see through that all the things that they were doing. So he ended up taking care of them all, with you know what I mean? And then when the wife came back with the other Omawo, he ended up giving Omawo all the blessings for being an honorable Omawo and watching over his wife and everything, right? And his wife was good to her. Her name was Oshufumi Gayo in that Odu, right? Now, here's the thing. Because his wife was empowered with the power of Aaron Diogun and Osha, she was able to know, okay, what it is I need to do and know how to defend herself when Orumila was gone. Remember, while the husband in our culture is the first line of defense, is the one who's watching over things, right? There's times, especially like where you might not be there, or there's times where you still need it's Ifa or Petabi, right? You need your Petabi to be a strong force. She was able to maintain, protect the children, all that stuff like that with the power of Aaron Diogun. So people sometimes think that we have Ifa, okay, everything's Ifa, we're good, right? But not teaching your pet to be the ways of Osha very well, right? To know how to do certain things or whatever like that, not showing her that power or whatnot like that. What that does is it can put you at a point of weakness too, as an author. Because if your wife can, go to Egbe for you, know how to really pray for her man in a way that is like, oh man, hold up. Why do these people just look at me to say, hey, oh yeah, we want to give you that deal. Hey man, this is this, right? You're losing out on you're losing out on a strong power source and not working with your pet to be and not ensuring that your pet to be is cared for and that you also have a relationship of mutual respect.
Yes. As you say that, I remember. Well, I'll just say it like this: my wife did her Petabi ceremony, and
that's it.
I remember when she did it. Somehow, I was showing my wife like Oshe Ifa and things like that. before she was even initiated.
That's
And when I would leave, she would do Oshe for my Ifa. And what I started to realize is that because of her being a Petebi, the things that she would pray for us and the house and the community and the children, it would manifest quicker than me. I've been initiated all these many years, and my wife, she goes to Ifa and says her piece. And what I realize is that my Ifa will bless her even quicker than my Ifa will bless me. And I know my Ifa loves me, but
right. But he's like, look at that. He's like, oh, you're a good wife. Okay.
Yeah. When my wife goes to Ifa, and Ifa knows if she's being treated well, she's doing, she's receiving what she needs, and if she's getting all those things, and Karan Sode, Ifa says, or Rumla says, is the Apetebi taking good care of Ifa shrine or not?
That's
right. And Ifa says there, when Apetebi takes good care of the Ifa shrine, she will be blessed with wealth. She will be blessed with a baby to tie to her back. And these aren't just blessings for her. There's blessings for the whole family, the whole community. So when you mention that, it's like that's such a, we're talking about manhood, but awohood and that relationship, that interplay with a Petebi, that is so important. I thank you for mentioning that. Because that oftentimes that's a piece that gets really missed. What I wanted to ask about is manhood. Like, who are some of your greatest examples, and who gave you that charge to be a man?
So I'll say this: my father was a great example of hard work. So that Ogunda Meji, he's a military dude. My grandfather was military. All of them was all military, right? So even though me and him didn't have the see eye to eye growing up a lot, I did recognize that he would always at all times have like 2 to 3 jobs, and I'd be like, huh? And then when I meant by his goal, he actually went to he actually ended up going deep into Christianity and opened up his own church and becoming a pastor. Right. So as much as I was like, man, we ain't the same. This is right. And I look at my life, I'm like, oh, there is similarities. There's some strong ones. I would say that hard work ethic that he had was good. There were some things, like I said, even in Yoruba culture, right? Divorce is something that's not a good thing, seen as good, right? So even in the Bible, Yoruba culture, would not like that, right? So there was, of course, going to be some tension there. Or whatnot like that. And as I got older, I got to be able to look at things from the perspective of a man instead of the perspective of, sometimes younger kids, if you're with the mom, you start looking at things from her perspective, right? But as I got older, I was like, nah. And I remember there was a little bit of conflict, like tension between me and my mom too, growing up when I was in my early 20s, because she recognized that, I started looking at things from a very masculine perspective and be like, oh, no, that ain't the thing, right? So I would say that his hard work ethic really made me be like, okay, if I can't trust in nobody, if I can't trust in nothing else, I could trust in my ability as a man to work. And I think that in itself, even though it seems extremely mundane, it's like, wait, hello, you ain't good. What about Ifa? What about this and this? And I'm like, the ability to work, because I'm like, no, Ifa will manifest through my work. You know what I mean? And so I think that was like one of the things that was like, okay, that Malcolm X is ultimate, like, on that list. Malcolm was just like, yeah, he completely on that list, right? Malcolm X. Also, there was, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting his name. He wrote Reginald L. Lewis. He wrote a book.
Reginald the Earth, Frantz Fanon?
Huh?
We said what book?
Oh, there's a no, not French Montana. You know, I love, we all love French Montana, right?
Oh
No,
yeah,
Reginald L. Lewis. Reginald L. Lewis. He was the first
Reginald L.
black
Okay, I'm
billionaire.
so sorry.
Yeah,
I thought you said wretched of the earth. I'm sorry.
yeah, no. Reginald, no. I said Reginald L. Lewis. He wrote
Okay.
Why Should White Men Have a Lot of Fun? Black
Mm.
billionaire. He ended up finding it through business and law and all that stuff like that. And I read his book, and that changed my life. I thought to myself, I said, yeah, why should white guys have a lot of fun? And
Wow.
how are we gonna get this money?
Mm.
So him. Yeah, and I think a lot of yeah, when I think about those, I would say those are like some of my three top ones.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, thank you for that. That's a jewel.
Yeah.
That's a jewel. So I want to ask you this last question and just kind of get your whole perspective. Even though this will be probably like a summary, but
Mm-hmm.
like, how is African culture essential in terms of your concept of manhood? One.
Thank you. So I intentionally mentioned the characters that I mentioned because of the fact that I couldn't mention because of the fact that for me, African culture, Yoruba culture as a whole, can't be encapsulated by one man that I look up to in Yoruba culture. Meaning that I look up to a lot of the elders, a lot of the men in high ways, and even in ways that people would be like, "Oh, are you sure you don't look up to them more than you looked up to some of the men on the list that you said?" Right?
Mm.
Because I'm very much like Yoruba male culture. I mean, going there, that was the best thing I could do to heal from systematic American I don't want to use a cuss word on it, but just systematic American chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're gonna bring out the African in me, so I'm gonna start saying it how it is, okay?
Facts.
In America, right is left and left is right, meaning that there's
Yes.
it's all up is down is up, all that stuff like that, right? America's like very much, but African culture is very much like, hey, you a man, you got to take that responsibility. What you talking about?
Right.
Why you complaining? You're like, what? And hey, you don't get excuses. You gotta like you a man. You gotta handle it. You know what I mean? And it's very much like Africa's very much like bam, bam, bam. Same thing in amongst the women, right? They're like, okay, here, let me go make Baba's plate, And then Black American culture, old Black American culture, we got that. But nowadays in our culture, we be having, well, why did
Mm-hmm. Okay.
so yeah. Honestly, I couldn't say, it might if I was to think about the Yoruba culture and think about some of the elders that I had, if I mentioned their names in my top three, y'all would automatically be like, I think you you definitely they've made more of an impact than you than a lot of than a lot of people, right? Because I'll say this. For a 19-year-old coming from American chaos, coming from a family that was, splintered, coming from, community where the black people, I mean, a lot of times in our growing up in the West Coast, the top heroes is game bangers. Let's be real, like, oh shoot, and all that stuff like that. And going to an African culture where it's very much like, yeah, what you complaining about? You're a man, you better handle that. Or this is this. So don't be a coward. Don't do this. And seeing certain things like African culture is very much like, you're mad, you gotta handle this, right? And on the flip side, in American culture, on the flip side, even like with the woman too, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, like, okay, we got yes such and such who's gonna be able to cook the food for everybody. And in America, sometimes like, you see stuff just being like right is left, left is right, up is down, down is up, or whatnot, and just seeing this vast, deep cultural wisdom. Now, what I will say is this: a lot of people might say that they practice the cultural wisdom, but they don't in Africa too. Sometimes you'll see people doing some chaotic stuff as well. But the foundational root of what things are supposed to be is understood from that cultural framework. Ranging for tens of thousands of years, right? And so for me, it actually was a healing experience Because I'll say this: America, for a lot of men, completely um completely works to confuse your sense of purpose and what it is to be a man. A lot of these boys, we look at these boys and we say, oh, he doesn't have ambition, he's confused, he doesn't know where he want to go. It's not that he doesn't have ambition, he's confused and doesn't know where he wants to go. It's that society's telling him all these different things. Right. And telling him that that he should be where he shouldn't be or whatnot like that. And not being very clear and giving him structure and saying, hey, you're a man, this is what you should be working for. This is how you need to be doing this or whatnot like that, right? We got a society that's telling dudes, oh yeah, I don't know, I don't want to get this podcast messed up, but we're having the society telling dudes to just do things that don't align with our culture and to just be like and have a lack of ambition or whatnot like that. And so Africa is very clear on, and because of also, it's very clear on the fact that like, oh no, as a man, this is what you should be working for. This is what you should be doing. This is what our culture is or whatnot. This is your place with your children. This is your place with the woman. In American culture, they tell a lot of men, honestly, that their role isn't that important. In African culture, they tell you that your role is the most important. That like your legacy, your kids acting up, your community, your people doing that, that's a reflection of the men. So now it teaches you like, oh man, hold up, like what do I do? It teaches you from Africa. I learned the concept of like really building your own egg bed because right now our community is so big that I can't just be like, oh, we're all one community, we're all the same, whatever like that. No, but African culture teaches you how to work with other men to build an egg bed that protects your families, that protects your immediate community, and hopefully that'll grow and expand to protect others.
Ashe. Man, I just have to say, everything that you're saying is, is in alignment, and I respect that and I appreciate it. Thank you so much. So, man, I don't know. All I can say is we got to do this again because there's so much more to unpack within this conversation culturally. But what I also would like is, what are the ways that we can reach you? And I know that there will be people out there who want to learn traditional Yoruba drumming, dance, music, and they want to be in alignment with that. And so how can people get in contact with you, Baba?
One of the best ways to get in touch with me is Ile, ILEAWODI, ileawodi.org. Find me on the website. You can reach out directly there. You can also find me, email me at Chief Awodi, AWODI. So Chief Awodi at ileawodi.com.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you guys, anybody want some drum ceremony, want some songs, some dances, I'm all about, empowering other Iles, other cult, other community members in the way of our song of drum. Because guess what? It ain't fun if I come out to a ceremony and I'm the only one drumming and singing. Right. So I want everybody to be singing the songs, being better to be at it, doing this. It's a perfect world where I could just focus on drumming.
Right.
So just know that, whoever's watching this, just know that I'm open to definitely wanting to teach and work and empower Iles. And because, that's another thing too. Our wolves who run their own Iles, you might need some Agogo Ifa training so that y'all can now have at least Agogo Ifa singing for the Ifa for your issue and all that with that. I can do that because it makes it better for me when we have festivals or whatnot like that. That they got that. Okay, I can add some Baton Pete's to it. I can do whatever. And so, I'm all about that. So you got the ways.
Okay, so we're going to be reaching out to you, and I'm confident that there will be so many others that want this teaching, that want this information. And I personally, I'm going to get my temple involved in classes, whatever classes that you have. I would like you to, I'm going to say this on here that I would like to, basically offer those on on with my temple members and others, and I would like to share that platform. But I personally would love to learn more and learn from you. All right.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah,
so we're gonna build it out.
Yeah, we got to. And I'm so thankful for this. This was a really enriching and rewarding conversation. And Baba, thank you. I want to see if you want to close us out. If you have any last words or anything that you want to say as we tap out.
All right. Yeah, I just hope that we all reach, that on all of our journeys, that we're all met with ire, we're all met with goodness. There's a verse from Iwori Meji. Iwori biode kio kire, Iwori biode na kio kina, kire kio na kio man, yoni bani adiva kundi dun tomo sodo yo, ebony wani also si babani bo, kini be gabe nio, kini be gabe nio. So wherever we travel, wherever we go, we will greet each other well. And on our journey, on our roads, we'll see calabashes full of honey and sweetness.
Ashe. Thank you so much, Baba. We love you, and you are welcome here at any time.
Ashe.
Welcome. This is your other home if you want it.
Ashe, look. Ashe.
You're welcome here.
I'm ready to build. I'm ready. Let's do it. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Oluo. Ifakolade, thank you for the work that you're doing. I was just looking at this. I was like, man, this is powerful what he's doing. I'm excited for it. Keep on with your journey. Ifa will bless you. People will come and reach out for you. They will always be looking for you. Say, Baba. Your godchildren will be prosperous and large and great. And people will be like, everybody will be like, we love going to Oluo Ifakolade's festivals. We love going to his temple. We know his Dafa. They'll be talking to you about all the greatness that your Dafas have given for them. Ifa will continue to bless you.
May Ifa bless you and your family and just give you so much. So much. You have been blessed to give, and I pray that Olodumare will bless you with even more to give. Success and blessing for your children, success and blessing for yourself and your wife, and also you and your wife's relationship. May you all continue to work together and build together and build the great empire that you're incorporating. Thank you so much. This has been a great one.
We'll talk soon.